First of all, welcome to this video series with Cosmos Hub. We're trying to learn more about building on the hub, all the tech and amazing feature it offers, and just like a fun conversation, so that more cosmonauts can learn about this. So we'll begin with you just giving us a quick intro about you, what you're working on, and that'll be great.
Thank you for having me, guys. My name is Milos. I'm business development lead for the Cosmos Hub. My main focus are developing business relation for two products. One of is interchain security, the other one is Hydra. I've been in Web3 professionally for the past 4 years, I think. Before that, I was just like a regular user from 2017, basically watching what is going on with the space, and that's, I think, the first time that I heard about Cosmos. Yeah.
So how did you come across Cosmos, and what was one of the first apps you used, or what is the first thing you read about?
Actually, Cosmos was part of my research for the previous company that I worked for. There was an idea to create a similar ecosystem that Cosmos has. So I was kind of tasked by the founders to kind of investigate and explore what kind of tech is residing in Cosmos. So I was pretty much familiar with it. And basically, as soon as I left that company, I decided to join Cosmos because everything was very familiar for me, at least.
It was really matching the vision that you had.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. So since you work with two products and you're really familiar with the Cosmos SDK also, what is it something about the SDK that makes you very bullish on Cosmos in terms of the tech?
The biggest surprise for me, so I was part of Ethereum ecosystem previously. When I find out that Cosmos doesn't actually have a runtime based chain architecture. So most of the ecosystems like Ethereum, Solana, any other ecosystem, Avalanche as well, are runtime based ecosystems, which means there is a virtual machine which is running, and basically all the tech stack needs to be aligned with it. Cosmos is different in that way, so you could basically plug on your Web2 app on top of the Cosmos and you could create a blockchain, and that's amazing for me.
Interoperability is something that's very crucial to Cosmos, and since you work with a lot of builders and developers as well, how do you think that plays into improving their experience of of building something on Cosmos versus other blockchain ecosystems that are not that interoperable?
That boils down basically to IBC, right? So IBC is one of the most battle tested, out of the box building solution that you can have right now in this space. And more I see projects kind of seeking out to Cosmos ecosystem and trying to create a similar architecture for the bridge. I think it's one of the most important things, especially for an an upcoming app chain. Interoperability with other ecosystems is crucial for you to succeed. I honestly think that this period of where you have those big L1 chains is kind of fading away, and right now I believe that each app will be its own chain, and you really do need interoperability for that.
We'll jump into this another segment. It's talking about interchain security, some bit about governance. Okay, interchain security, we've got I think 4 chains that have adapted ICS. What do you think Cosmos Hub can do to incentivize or further promote more chains/projects to adopt interchain security?
I think the tech part is kind of solved already, in a way, right now, and especially with the latest edition of permissionless interchain security, which is called Forge. I think we pretty much nailed it down and lowered the bar for basically any project to join the ICS family. The next thing that we need to tackle is third-party tooling and services for those projects. So running your own chain is a great thing, but on top of that, you need some kind of a RPC node, you need block explorers, you need oracles, you need potentially bridges, you need KYC providers, you need fiat on web services. Bringing those type of tooling and services inside the Cosmos in a more structured way would benefit tremendously to the project, and it really caters to the narrative of having Cosmos Hub a best place to launch a chain.
I think we recently had the launch of, or we are in mid of the launch of Crypto Dungeon, which is the newest ICS supported chain, or consumer chain basically. What do you think some of the feedback, or that you pretty sure feel that needs to be addressed right away so that it can be made even more smoother?
Yeah, obviously we could add, our goal is to make it as simple as possible, and I actually met a co-founder of Crypto Dungeon here, and he told me, listen, thank you for helping me spin up my chain. He needed a small assistance from our side, but if I can do it, anybody can. And I kind of feel that this is the right approach for any project. Obviously when we start adding more features to the Forge, which is basically the front end for the permissionless ICS. Our main goal would be to simplify the onboarding process for any project.
Since you're working on two products, what does your day typically look like? Working on them, and how are things going on that front?
Yeah, it can be difficult sometimes because these are completely two different projects. So hopping between those two during the day can be exhausting, but I kind of try to reach out. I mean, most of your clients are kind of overlapping in a sense. And the reason for this is obviously if you have a potential project which wants to launch a chain and they want to have some kind of a token on top of that chain, obviously they would benefit on utilizing the Hydro, which is the liquidity export platform. So you kind of try to upsell to each project everything that you can offer to them. Yeah.
Since you're working on Hydro, we're going to jump on a few questions about Hydro. I think to begin with, can you give me explain it to me like a 5 version of what Hydro does? A very simple version that cosmonauts can follow.
Hydro simplifies, makes liquidity export more efficient than the current way that we are utilizing liquidity. So the way that you think about Hydro is a more structured, more transparent and more efficient way of exporting liquidity to the projects inside the Cosmos ecosystem. That's like the LE5 explanation. Right now we have this, almost a cumbersome process of 5 weeks setting up props for 2 weeks on forum, 2 weeks on-chain voting, and most likely you will need to socialize your prop during that time. And what we discovered basically that the biggest obstacle for project is uncertainty and kind of guesstimating of how much liquidity you should ask for, what is the utilization strategy that gets approved, and we feel that a more efficient and a more structured approach was needed. And this is why we decided to create Hydro, which actually solves all these obstacles for projects.
What particular aspect of Hydro bringing liquidity very more efficiently, more transparent manner excites you about when it comes to onboarding more projects?
I think the most exciting part is this interesting dynamic that exists between projects and voters. So it acts like a two marketplace. On one side you have voters who are incentivized by projects by posting attributes. So there is a direct benefit for you as a voter to support a particular project for that liquidity export. On the other hand, you have projects competing with each other, and this creates an interesting dynamic and also adds additional reward on top of the staked yield that you are receiving as an ATOM staker. So I think compared to the current state where everything is done through forum and on-chain governance, I think this is more engaging and more rewarding to say the least.
We're going to jump into that rapid fire section. Since you're working on ICS, what do you think it is, a safety net or a growth accelerator?
I think it's a growth accelerator, definitely, because it allows projects to kind of utilize the security of the Cosmos Hub for a fraction of the price, basically. And it's up to the project to decide which level or how high the economic security of their chain needs to be. Maintaining 180 validators, for example, for any new project will be a huge burden. And it's also a huge token economics pressure because you need to incentivize all of these validators. Being able to kind of gradually increase and maybe even have approach pay as you grow as a description to this is something that I think is very beneficial for all the projects, especially now with the Halo coming in and kind of filling that gap between full-blown chains like ICS, where you have complete granularity and control over your chain, and between those dApps which reside as a smart contract. So now I think even having Halo in between those is kind of beneficial for ICS because it is going to attract more projects to kind of upgrade at some point towards the ICS.
What is the first governance proposal you voted on?
First governance proposal, that's a good question. Since I'm 4 months in, did I vote at any? Oh yes, I did actually for Hydra.
What do you think is an immediate challenge that Cosmos Hub faces that needs to be addressed?
There are a couple of challenges. I think, obviously missing a core team is, from a technical side, something that's obstructing the future development of the Cosmos Hub. But I also think that we need a more aligned and more harmonious cooperation between those decentralized teams that are maintaining the Cosmos Hub, especially from the product perspective. If all the entities which are acting as a stewardship to the hub start to perform in a more harmonious way, I think it would be beneficial for the entire space.
Your go-to, like your favorite interchain wallet, you can have multiple favorites for different reasons.
I think Kepler for now.
Why should cosmonauts consider holding ATOM?
That's actually a very good question, since there is no direct incentive for anybody to directly hold it. One of the things that I liked about Cosmos is freedom and openness, and holding ATOM is actually the least that anybody could do to kind of support the amazing tech that was built inside Cosmos. And I think that this is like the most simplest way to support a project which obviously is a little bit different than most of the other ecosystems, but are unique in a very specific way. Most assets, if you look, for example, in Ethereum or other ecosystems, are most alignments are asset-based, and it's completely different in Cosmos. Everything is tech-based, and Cosmos and ATOM is basically like a token of gratitude. If you hold it, you are supporting that tech, and I like that a lot.
What's a project that's a dark horse that will surprise a lot of, it's undiscovered and surprise a lot of folks in Cosmos?
I can't say that I have one, since I'm mostly communicating with DeFi projects lately. And like I said, I'm just 4 months in, but I kind of like what guys at Mars are doing, and and Amulet as well. I think these are two new interesting, I mean, Mars is obviously not new, but some new concept that they are experimenting with, and also Amulet as a completely new project is kind of interesting from a DeFi perspective.
Do you want to give like a catchphrase or something that folks can do on Cosmos? They should do?
I don't have one. To be honest, I don't have one at all.
Amazing. That'll be a wrap. Thank you so much for answering all the questions.